Hello.
Hi, hello Sam. Can you
Hi.
hear me?
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. And happy World Oceans Day. My name is Sam Dark, and I've worked for Frugi for 2 years now, and have a huge passion in conservation and an MSc in animal welfare. And I'm really excited to introduce Charlie Phillips from the WDC. Welcome, Charlie.
Hi, good afternoon Sam. Good afternoon everybody. Lovely to be here.
Good, lovely to have you, Charlie. Thanks so much. So, Charlie is an Adopt a Dolphin field officer for the Whale and Dolphin Conservation charity, and they're doing amazing work all over the world to protect whales and dolphins. So let's dive right in. Sorry for the pun. And Charlie, just tell us about your amazing job and all the work that you're doing in Scotland.
Yeah, my job is really fairly simple. I study dolphins for a living, and for WDC, I try and track down four particular individual dolphins within this population. We have a population up here of around about 200 or so bottlenose dolphins, and four of which the public can adopt through WDC. You can adopt and support the charity that way, like you guys have, and we're very, very grateful for it. Um, the the weather up here can be a bit of a problem, and sometimes the dolphins moving about can be a bit of a problem as well. But when everything comes together, when all the planets align, then I've got the adoption dolphins individuals right in front of me, and I can either get photographs or video of them. I can also assess their health and see who they're hanging about with, see if they maybe had babies, or like Rainbow has just now. She's got her 2-year-old with her. And just basically keep an eye on them. But the other part of the job is also meeting the public, meeting supporters, collaborating with the scientists and other researchers, and just trying to figure out what's going on with this population, because they're a very special bunch of dolphins.
Yeah, well, it sounds like a dream job to me. Anyway, so let's can you tell us also why whales and dolphins are really important for the marine ecosystem? Why are they so important? And maybe just touch upon the threats that they're facing today around the world.
Yeah, whales and dolphins are almost like eco-engineers, if you like.
Yeah.
When they're swimming about the seas and oceans of the world, they're actually mixing around with other stuff. And just like us, whales and dolphins do have to poo now and again, and this almost like fertilizer. It actually begins to affect the whole biomass, the whole ecosystem, and as I say, it's basically like fertilizer, and it starts boosting the amount of phytoplankton, and that increases, and then the plankton eats the phytoplankton, and then the big whales come along and they eat the plankton, and it's the whole food chain right in front of you. And the way that the way that whales and dolphins do this is pretty much benign. They don't really do any harm to the environment, unlike us, sadly. So whales and dolphins are generally, we would almost call them the farmers of the sea. And as long as we can start to rein in the amount of damage that we're doing in the world's oceans and seas, and stop overfishing and stop polluting it, then we have a hope that many whales and dolphins will live long lives as they can do, and we'll see them in generations to come. But we need to act very soon. We need to act very soon, because we know from research that we have funded ourselves, and also from our own people around the globe, that things are happening very, very quickly. And
They are. And the WDC
yeah,
is doing such amazing work. I know the WDC has been going for 30 years, haven't they, with all their work
yes,
around the world in
yes,
education and research and conservation. So can you tell us about why it's so important?
yeah. We work very closely with local governments in countries all around the world, and we are quite often invited to come in and advise certain governments, certain groups about areas of the sea and areas of the ocean that are maybe very important to whales and dolphins. And through some of the stuff that we do, we can sometimes influence the way that, say, special areas of conservation are set up, or marine protected areas. And these generally are for the good of all the marine mammals and all the actual sea life within that area, because it's all interlinked. It's all interlinked. It's not just one species on its own. Everything has a knock-on effect to something else. And just a lot of the stuff that we do all around the planet is really becoming more and more important every day, because time is running out, and we really need to act on stuff that some governments have been very slow in the uptake to actually take measures over. And my colleagues all around the world do a great job, sometimes in very difficult circumstances. I consider myself fairly lucky that I'm living in a lovely country that has fairly friendly people, and the members of the public that I talk to and the supporters that I talk to are all very supportive. So I'm very lucky, but some of my colleagues aren't. They're working in quite difficult circumstances. But the work that they do is absolutely vital.
It really is vital. And let's go into captivity now, which is one of those issues that's shocking to read on your website. It says there are 3,600 whales and dolphins still in captivity around the world today, which is quite shocking, really. They're, obviously living in small tanks. And we now know that living in tanks for whales and dolphins is just incredibly stressful for them. It's an unnatural environment, and it causes not only health issues but mental issues. And I don't know if you saw, I think we talked about it earlier, that documentary, for me, Blackfish, about sea in Orlando, really opened my eyes up to the tourism industry and how it's abusing these beautiful creatures. So what can all the people listening in now, what can we do to help this particular campaign at home?
Captivity has been going on for a long time, and thankfully we are gradually picking away at it, and the amount of facilities these days are getting less and less. I have colleagues that do nothing but concentrate on the captivity issue, and they're pedaling really, really hard to get a lot of the places actually closed down, and the public are beginning to turn. The tide literally is beginning to turn. Through initiatives that we've raised, and also through friends and colleagues, again, all around the world. We're beginning to get through to the public that having captive dolphins, having captive orca, having captive pilot whales, just for entertainment, really is the most cruel thing you could possibly do, because these beautiful, sentient wild mammals can travel sometimes hundreds of miles every day. And having them confined in these really cramped conditions, and they're quite often pretty unsanitary conditions that they're in, it not only affects them physically, but it also deeply, deeply affects them mentally as well. Because they come from families, they come from populations where social links are extremely tight, and the bonds are really, really strong.
And they travel in the wild, don't they? Travel miles and miles in the open ocean.
So yeah. I mean, the bottlenose dolphins that I study up here can quite easily travel 100 miles a day. Yeah. And some of the big whale species can travel, multiple hundreds of miles every day just to travel to find food sometimes.
Yeah.
So confining them in a concrete tank, just for people to look at them and, laugh and cheer and make them do tricks and stuff, to me, it's just horrifying, because I have the luxury of studying completely wild, free dolphins. So
I think the message for everyone here is, if you see, you're going on holiday somewhere like a SeaWorld or something, don't visit it, or maybe post a comment on their website and say, look, this is cruel, and try and avoid these places that have these dolphins and whales in tanks. That would be my goal, is to just don't go to them, don't frequent them, don't give them the money, don't think
yes, exactly. Vote with your money. Actually vote with your money. And there are plenty of companies that can actually show you whales and dolphins in the wild responsibly.
Yeah.
And if you do just a little bit of homework, then you'll actually find, if you can't get the information on your own, go online and just check that there are, in fact, even the whales.org website, we've got advice on whale watching, whether from a boat or whether from land. So come on there.
See, isn't it? I mean, when you go out in the boat and you see them in their own environment, enjoying their families and their pods, and really living how they're meant to be, is just far more entertaining anyway, and more educational for children than just watching them in a tank. So yeah, so thank you for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, it really is, and hopefully we'll see more of that going on if everyone did it. So moving on to another issue, which is whaling, which, you know, most countries it's banned. The law, we're not having it, but there are 3 countries that still do it, which is Iceland, Norway, and Japan, for various reasons. And they've in 1 year they killed 1,500 whales, which is quite a lot. So why are they still doing it, Charlie?
They still have this feeling that it's traditional for them, and that some of them are saying that they're using the dead animals for food and things. But we've disproved a lot of their claims, and we're killing these beautiful animals really now just as a habit. It's not really for food at all. It's just for pure greed, really. And the thing is that some of these whales that are being killed through ingesting man-made pollutants, the meat actually is so contaminated that you can't eat it.
No.
There are instances where samples are being taken from animals that have been killed, and the amount of PCBs and things that are still floating about in the ocean that are going through the food chain, and then up at the food chain, up at the top of the food chain are the whales. Then they're storing all this. They're actually storing all this contamination in their blubber.
Really?
And it's just horrible. It's just absolutely horrible. So there's really, nowadays there is absolutely no need to kill whales or dolphins or porpoises at all.
No.
They're really just...
They say it's for research in Japan, don't they? They continue doing it for research, but they think it's because they eat all the fish.
Yeah, this is a great excuse that they use, but there's really no research coming out of it. It's just absolute nonsense. So please, no, if you can, write to the governments of Iceland, the Faroe Islands are slaughtering dolphins and pilot whales. Write to the government of Japan and Norway and tell them this is completely unacceptable in this day and age, and stop now.
And Norway maybe, you know, banning it, hopefully. I read in your notes that maybe Norway may be banning whaling soon, or do you think that's coming up?
I think it's Iceland are deciding that they're going to bring their whaling to a close at the end of this year, which is certainly a step forward. It's certainly a step forward, and we thank them if that is really going to happen. But we've heard things from other governments before, and they've backtracked on things. So we'll wait until it actually happens, until we actually see whaling not happening in Iceland. And then we'll rejoice, because that's one less country doing this. But we still have Norway and Japan as a big problem, and we still have the Faroe Islands. I mean, the Faroe Islands slaughtered 1,400 white-sided dolphins recently. It was absolutely horrifying, and it's unspeakable. Really, it's absolutely unspeakable. And I mean, we're human beings. We get very attached to the whales and dolphins that we study and the whales and dolphins that we look at, and when we're thinking of animals like whales and dolphins just being butchered like that, it's so upsetting, and you know, it really does get to you, because we're more used to seeing them out in the wild where they belong. You know,
well, they're such intelligent creatures, aren't they? They're not, you know, intelligent creatures. They have families and feelings and pods and relationships with other animals, so it is really devastating to see them en masse. I just can't understand the mentality of somebody who's watching whales and dolphins or porpoises, and then
starting to hunt them and cut them up. I just don't get it. I just don't
No,
get it.
I think we share those sentiments, and a lot of
Mm,
people do. More and more people will, and hopefully it will be stopped.
yeah,
Another
yeah.
problem is also that whales and dolphins are getting caught up, thousands of them, in the fishing industry, in the nets, which is something I'm
Mm.
aware of, but it's threatening all of the species around the world in the fishing nets. And so what is the WDC doing to try and help that really important issue as well?
Yeah, we're engaging with governments around the world, and they're actually passing on the information to their fishing industries. But we're also in contact with private fisheries as well,
Good.
and just letting them know that the technology is getting better for detecting things getting caught in nets. But it's not just that; it's actually discarded equipment, like
Oh,
old bits of fishing net and things that are floating about in the sea. I
mm-hmm.
mean, we get a lot of big trawlers around the UK, and there's always bycatch, far too much, and we know this because those trawl nets are just going along scooping every single thing up. And dolphins and whales have to breathe; they have to come to the surface. And there are, there are many, many dolphins that get caught up in that. But then there's the other problem of ghost nets and other stuff that whales and dolphins can get tangled up in, and seals and turtles and things as
Yeah,
well.
huge issue.
And it's all this, and it really has to be. They really have to smarten up their act a bit and not allow stuff to go overboard and not allow it to drift in to drift around in the ocean. If they do drop something, then for goodness sake, go back and pick it up. But also the actual method of trawling that will scoop up everything in its path, that has to change. And there is technology out there. It is expensive though, and that's possibly part of the problem. But no, bycatch, as we call it, is a tremendous problem, and it's something that we're working very, very hard to try and get the fishing industry to mitigate, to actually bring the numbers down. And it's a matter of time before the message gets through. Some people, like the hunters, some people just won't listen to you at all, but others will actually engage and actually think about it. I think, well, if whales and dolphins are being caught, that's not very good for the PR, as it were, and it's possibly going to affect their business as well. And then they can maybe think about doing it. But sometimes it needs to be a financial penalty that actually wakens them up to the fact that there is something wrong. Because otherwise they're just pulling dead dolphins out their net and throwing them overboard, They need to think about it.
Change in this country. So I guess people at home can just keep signing those petitions. Hopefully you've got some on the WD website that they can go in and look at.
We've got information on the website, and please go and have a look about issues affecting not just around the UK but worldwide. It's not just a UK problem. There is a lot of this going on. Fishing nets, ropes,
just
and
needs to change.
Yeah, go and have a look on our site and actually find out about it.
Well, that was my next question. So what can the people at home, what can we do, not just today on World Oceans Day, but every single day at home for people to get involved to try and help the seas and also help the whales and the dolphins, because ultimately that just helps the quality of our sea ultimately, and is to go to your website, sign petitions. Don't go to tourist traps where they have these beautiful creatures in tanks. Is there anything else that we can do? What about children? Advice for parents wanting to encourage their children to learn. Is there anything on the website to help them learn?
Yeah, we've got lots of educational stuff and things for young people to take part in, ideas. But also all around the country, there are local wildlife groups and local activity groups where you can take part in beach cleans and this sort of thing, because a lot of what we do on land ends up in the sea. If you think about it, you maybe come out the supermarket and you're putting the shopping in the back of the car, and a plastic bag flies away in the wind. That plastic bag will probably eventually end up in the sea.
As well, I've sounds awful, but I ban balloons in my house because
Yes.
they can just go in the air, and you see people,
Yeah.
kids, oh, don't let it go because it will end up in the sea.
Yeah.
We, as a company, Frugi, we have a beach clean every year. We've got one coming up in September. So beach cleans, getting involved in beach cleans is really important. It's those little microplastics though, isn't it, Charlie? It's not just the big.
Yes. Tiny. Yeah. Tiny
Mhm.
stuff. Plastic itself eventually grinds down and becomes
Yeah.
microplastic, and that becomes ever so invasive. It gets in everywhere. But things like plastic bags, balloons, those kind of things. Just be careful how you use them.
Yeah.
And if you're ever near the coast anywhere, if you see even a small piece of rubbish, pick it up and put it in a bin.
Yeah.
Because if we all did that,
Yeah.
just picked up one little thing, whenever we're down there, the problem would get less.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
we need to educate. We need to inform people about the ways that things end up not only in the sea but also in our river systems as well. And the river systems eventually empty out into the sea. So things like river systems and coastal areas are very easily impacted by stuff like plastics, but also bits of netting, nylon line from angling, that kind of stuff.
That's
It's all.
mostly it's a lot of fishing net. It's all the.
Yeah, it does tend to be, but there's also quite a lot of leisure-related stuff as
Yeah.
well. Yeah, you find lots of stuff chucked in the sea beside the coastlines, and also in river systems. You end up with bits of camping equipment and things just
Yeah.
floating down,
Yeah.
downstream, and all of that can be a real problem because animals can get quite easily tangled up in that. Not just the pollution aspect as well. I mean, you've got chemical pollution too. You've got
Mm-hmm.
runoff from land, and you've also got accidental spillage and stuff. That gets into river systems, it gets into waterways, and it will eventually get into the sea as well.
Yeah, it
So it's
does.
also stuff like that. So be careful what you flush down the toilet. Be very careful what you put down the sink. Dispose of stuff carefully. Think about what you're doing.
Usable items, which is always a really good thing, which is what we always try and advise people to do. And I know that there's lots of resources for teachers as well on your website. So it has
Yeah.
resources that people can download, all sorts of really good things to learn about dolphins and conservation on there. So I know that in honor of World Oceans Day today, Frugi have sponsored our own dolphin called Rainbow, which is very apt because of all of our lovely colourful clothing. And Rainbow is swimming with her calf in the seas up in Scotland with you. Charlie, have you seen our lovely Rainbow recently? How's she doing?
I spotted her about 2 or 3 weeks ago. She was near Chanonry Point. I was actually out in a boat heading back towards Inverness, and I just caught a glimpse of her dorsal fin. Her and her 2-year-old calf, we don't know whether it's a boy or a girl yet. They are travelling between Cromarty, Chanonry Point, and maybe along as far as Spey Bay, where our Scottish Dolphin Centre is based. So she's travelling about quite a lot. This time of year, when the salmon are migrating in, dolphins will sometimes have to travel a little bit. If their own home range doesn't have much in the way of salmon coming in, then they'll maybe go and try hunting elsewhere. So sometimes it's a bit of a game of hide and seek that's going on. And just at the moment, Rainbow's playing a little bit of hide and seek. However, my friend and colleague, Barbara Cheney from Aberdeen University, she saw Rainbow and her youngster not long ago while she was out doing a dolphin photo ID survey. So we know that she's fine, and we know that the youngster's fine too.
Does she stay there all the time, Charlie, or does she migrate anywhere, or does she stay pretty much in the Scottish waters?
No, she seems to be staying in Scottish waters just now, although our population of dolphins are beginning to extend their home ranges quite a bit. One of our ex-adopted dolphins is actually now off the coast of Denmark, believe it or not. And also another one of our ex-adopted dolphins is off the coast of the Isle of Man at the moment too. So they are beginning to spread out their home ranges, and we don't know whether this is because of maybe climate change or whether it's maybe just lack of food in certain areas, or whether they just want to try and find pastures new. But thankfully, Rainbow Spirit, Charlie, and Indigo seem to be hanging around this area now, and long may they do so. They're becoming ever more. They're becoming ever. They're actually becoming ever more elusive to try and find. But it's so rewarding when you do find them and you get a bit of film or you get some nice new photos of them. So,
oh, that's amazing.
And we thank you for adopting her. She's a lovely dolphin.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. We're so excited, and you can all check out Rainbow on our blog today at welovefrugi.com. So check it out. But I want to ask one last question: are the populations up there growing? Are they thriving and getting? Obviously, we protect our dolphins and whales in this country, obviously. So are they? Is the populations getting bigger quite quickly? Because they do take a while for the populations to grow, don't they?
Yes, it can take a long time to discover whether a population of whales or dolphins or porpoises is actually decreasing or increasing.
Yeah.
And many years ago, we would have quoted the number of dolphins at, say, 130 or so. But nowadays, it's over 200. So we know that the population is expanding, but we don't know exactly how far or how fast it's expanding, because the data needed to actually tell this takes a long time to gather together. And that's what Aberdeen University, St Andrews University, and the various researchers that put into the big pool of information, that's what we're trying to find out. But Aberdeen University will quote probably around 200 to maybe 220 individuals at the moment.
I have to go see it. But are there any other areas around the UK that people can go and watch dolphins and whales around the UK?
Yes, because nowadays we have this sort of almost immediate information coming in from the likes of Facebook groups and Instagram followers, that kind of thing. We're getting people sending us information and sometimes sending us clips of video and sending us pictures of dolphins that they've maybe seen off the coast near where they live. And literally all round the UK coastline now, you can pretty much see dolphins, if not sometimes whales too. The south coast, all along the south coast, there's a chance of seeing dolphins, maybe bottlenose dolphins, more often than not, maybe common dolphins. But up the east coast, all the way from, say, Flamborough Bird Observatory, all the way up to Aberdeen, there'll be bottlenose dolphins. A lot of them are ours, stretched all the way down there. Over on the Welsh coast, there's a population of dolphins there, bottlenoses. Round Ireland, all the way up the west coast of Scotland, there's a good chance to see. There's many species of cetacean that you can see from the UK coastline, and it's just a matter of patience and looking. But lots of places that have lighthouses at them tend to be quite good for spotting whales and dolphins, because they tend to be in quite remote areas. Okay. But they also tend to be in quite interesting areas, because the geology of the sea, normally just off where the lighthouse is normally deep, and it's normally got food resources in it. So there's quite often whales or dolphins moving around. Okay. So go and try and find a remote point somewhere, and just go and sit there with a pair of binoculars and a flask of tea or a flask of coffee, and just see what happens.
What a great time. I'm definitely going to do that this summer with my children, maybe off the coast of Devon, to go and see it. But so the dolphin populations around the UK are growing, which is really, really good news. Are they growing around the world as well? I know we have all these issues that we talked about. Was quite sad with, captivity and whaling and everything else and fish nets. But overall, are the whale populations growing around the world? Are they thriving, or are they really in trouble? And we really need to take action now before it's too late. Where are we on the kind of temperature?
We need to take that. Well, we need to take action now, just anyway. We need to waken up and just realise that a lot of populations are still in trouble, and have been in trouble since whaling, the effects of whaling especially. Some populations have recovered, others have been at a point of almost no return. And the problem that we have is that we have insufficient data on some species of whale to be able to forecast whether they're maybe going to recover properly or not, or whether it's maybe too late for them. When you're dealing with mammals, especially, you have a certain level of viability, and it's got to be, you know, X amount of hundred or maybe X amount of thousands of individuals within a population that's going to make it viable.
Mm-hmm.
Because as the numbers go down, your genetic variation goes down, and the viability of the population just begins to spiral. We do have good news stories from a few places around the world where we think populations are recovering and recovering quite well. Mostly that's because they've been left alone.
Yeah.
They've been left alone by us to recover naturally. But also some of the stuff that the more environmentally aware groups and environmentally aware people have been doing around the planet have helped. They have helped local populations of porpoises, dolphins, whales, but there's still a long way to go and a lot to do. But it's not all doom and gloom. There are good news stories out there, and that for us is the inspiration to keep going and just keep doing what we do.
Good. Well, keep up with the good work. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you today, Charlie. You're a wealth of knowledge, and I could talk to you forever. I really could. So thanks so much for your time today. And if anyone wants to learn more, go to our blog, like I said, at www.welovefrugi.com, and also head over to whales.org and see all sorts of videos and all sorts of downloads as well today. So let's just, let's just keep up the great work. It really, really was a pleasure to talk to you today, Charlie. Thanks so much for being here.
Yes, likewise, Sam, and thanks to all at Frugi. Our love and best wishes from all of us here at WDC. So enjoy the rest of World Oceans Day.
Thank you very much, and keep us posted on Rainbow.
Will do.
Thanks, Charlie. Take care. Bye, everyone.
Bye.